Well, good evening. The story that we are looking at this week, the old story, is one. Anyway, I'm Electra Porzel. I'm with the Language of Consciousness Institute. And the stories I'm about to talk about were first shared by Charles Eisenstein in a blog in January. And I just thought it'd be great to have the discussions with people every week. So the story that we were discussing tonight, the old one, and this is basically this, he says all the old stories are ones that society's pretty much founded in. We come from that story. So it's ethical, moral, pro-social behavior requires overcoming the natural tendency towards selfishness. It requires a conquest of nature internally, waging a war against the self. And I think this is kind of the basic story of human beings are basically selfish. Their natural tendency is to only care about themselves. It is not for the greater good. Now, the new story that he thinks is building is this: ethical, moral, pro-social behavior is a core part of human nature that expresses itself in the right conditions and can be nourished and developed. So what we started saying, and when we did the full circuit, one woman said, well, in my community, they're teaching listening skills, and so that people can hear each other better. If you look at what was it, the indigenous practice of the talking stick, it was so that the person who had the stick could do the talking, and it was passed around so that everybody could say something. If you look at the yarning tradition out of the Australian Aborigines, it's talking until all the sharing is done and the listening is done. And I think the listening is different than the sharing. We all have probably experienced the problem where people don't listen. They just, while you're talking, they're preparing their point, versus listening is a response to what someone said and actually not preparing your point until you've responded to what they've said. But in any case, we had a wide-ranging discussion, and it was like there's stuff happening on the national level, state level, local level, as well as individually, how we note that things need to happen where people listen to each other and they nurture and nourish the kinds of behavior that are caring, compassion, keeping the benefit to the whole in mind. And we were each talking about specific times that we've been with family members, either hearing a story of rewarding a child for compassionate behavior or helping a child see the impact of their words on another. We all agreed that kids innately are very compassionate and caring. And if we can build on that's one way that we'll build a new society, a new reality of unity. So it may mean that we change how we educate children. It may mean how we parent them. Will probably mean that. But for those kids who are in homes where the parents, whatever, are overworked, don't have this new story ethic in their own gut, then we have to find ways to parent these other children, provide opportunities through schooling and other support systems to help them to nourish and develop them in their compassionate and caring and ethical ideas of how to be a human being, how to be with others in a way that opens up to the other. Now, when you listen and open up to other, it doesn't mean that you have to adopt the other's ideas. It means that you listen and find a place in a larger field where that position is held. one of the things that we do in the field of Tantra Mat is really say, if something is really bothering you, then you create a larger field, so that thought or that action or that group become a very small part of the world that you live in. And we know that a field of unity will create everything, have everything in it. But those that are against life, that are against the good of all, would become very small in that larger and larger field that you create. So it was a very interesting conversation in that we really went the full blanket of how do you handle this on a national level and how you handle it down to how do you handle it on yourself as you show more compassion for self and compassion and caring for others. And this idea of always holding the greater whole, the good for the greater whole in mind when we interact. So it's not an easy, how is this going to happen? It's not like I can turn over and think it and make it happen. It means that every day I make choices about how to approach a situation, whether I'm by phone or Zoom or in person with someone, that creates something that works for both of us, that makes it something where the better nature of each of us is supported. So I really do believe, as the people on the call that I talk to believe, we all believe the news story is coming. And we believe that it requires our attention to make it happen. One of the points one woman made is voting. Say, who do you vote for? How do you get the information to make sure that this person acts from the same moral, ethical, pro-social viewpoint that you have? And then how do we hold them to that? So that's a role that I know I don't play strong enough. And I'm going like, if I want to impact that level, then I have to change some of my own behaviors. Right now, I think we all can align with personal. How do I create the world better in the relationships that I have with others? Whether it's with friends, whether it's my children or grandchildren, the people I run into at stores. And there's always choice. There's always choice about the way that I language something, the energy that I bring to something. The energy could be compassion and love and caring, or it can be, I'm going to hit you because I'm really mad. And sometimes it feels good for the moment to say, blah, 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 but it doesn't create a better situation for anybody. And that is part, I believe, of where we are going as a species. We cannot continue to think only of just, you don't create a society if everybody is only thinking about themselves. It will never get to be a cohesive whole, a sustainable whole. If we're looking at creating a sustainable future for the children and the grandchildren and the coming generations, we have to create new ways of being individually, whether that and new institutions that will take the greater good of all in mind instead of the few. So anyway, that's the thoughts for today from the Charles Einstein's Next Stories. Next week, we're talking about somewhat similar idea. And next week, we're talking about that we are beyond survival, but we need to express our gifts to the ecosystem and the totality of life to actually fulfill our roles and function. So what is our roles and function? Is that really true? Do you think it's true? Do you think it's happening? And how do we make it happen more? How do we care more about the land, care more about and show it care in our actions, care more about nature. That's our ecosystem. What role do you as an individual and I as an individual and us together as groups, as a economic system, as a political system, show that caring for the ecosystem. So anyway, if you're interested in joining this conversation next week, go to the website www.loc-institute.com and go to our events page and sign up for the March Charles Eisenstein's conversations, and they're free. It's just an interesting hour, because I find that the more I engage in conversation where we're really looking at all sides of an issue, then I think about it all week. And it makes me come to things differently, because I'm trying to look at stuff from different perspectives and see how not just my life is impacted, but how others' lives are impacted. I wish you a good week, good thinking, and looking at things from different positions. Hope to see you next week on the conversation. Bye-bye.